just met in executive session, and we discussed personnel issues, HIB, and our suspension detention report. And I just want to mention that, as usual, the notice of tonight's meeting was put into the Times newspaper, the patch sent to the Borough Clerk of Fanwood, and the Township Clerk of Scotch Plains. And I think we have several additions to the agenda. We have 3S and 4S. And we have the US 25, 26, 27, and 28. Because it's listed here. So I'm just adding those in addition to these. Although I think we actually passed that. Okay, in accordance with policy 9322-R, it's the opportunity for the public to speak. And anyone wishing to speak should give us their name and the town in which they reside when they come to the microphone. Okay, seeing no one, we'll move on, and I think we'll go first. We'll hold off on committee reports if there are any committees that have updates, and go to the instructional update because we have an exciting presentation, and I know that we're all looking forward to it, and I'll let Dr. Hayes introduce our guests.
Okay. We are very pleased that we have Nina Mechanico with us tonight, our teacher from our computer-assisted drawing classes. And I'm going to let him introduce what we're going to talk about tonight. This is a direct result of a presentation that was done for our board curriculum committee, which they found so interesting that they wanted us to share it with the full board. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Mechanico, and you can take it from there. Mr. Rodriguez, I'm sorry.
Oh, and are you going to use the screen?
Yes, please.
Okay, so some of us
I'm
will
sorry, I apologize.
That's okay.
And you have a student here with you
Yes.
tonight?
Brian Guglielmo.
Okay, and say that again?
Brian Guglielmo.
Okay.
He's one of my students from all my CAD classes, including the engineering technology.
Right, and I believe you were also featured in the video that we did for Innovate
Correct.
New
Yes.
Jersey, correct? So welcome, we're glad you're here.
So, I just wanted to give you a brief demonstration on what we've been accomplishing in the high school in terms of utilizing 3D printing for problem-based learning activities. And I've used it across the board in practically every course. Now, mind you, I bought the machine in 2013, and this technology is constantly changing. So now in the process of considering buying another one because we're branching off. We're trying to see if I can get the science department on board so they can utilize the machine to their own fields. So let me give you an idea of what I do. What you're seeing up on the screen are two drawings from the first and the second level course in CAD. And you can see the level of complexity. Oh, I'm sorry. And you can see the level of complexity of the drawing. For students, it's very difficult to be able to conceptualize this geometry and be able to reproduce it in 2D. So what I do for them, or what I used to do prior to the 3D printing, is actually could make a three-dimensional virtual model I can put up on the screen. So what I do now, in addition to this, is I can literally print out the models themselves. So the students can actually take the model and hold it up to the screen for better comprehension. And I found that this is now becoming much more helpful since I've been doing this. So it's
That's
really,
so the public can hear us.
Okay.
We record it, thank you. We really want to get this information out there.
okay. So this really has helped great deal of comprehension. Because as I said before, with a 3D virtual model, it's one thing, but being able to hold it in your hand and hold it up to the screen to reproduce the 2D geometry really helps. So comprehension is much better regarding this. In addition to that, in the product design class, I give students a design brief, and they have to design a particular product. We give 2 presentations during that semester. The initial presentation, they do research, they tabulate the data, and then they do one PowerPoint in order to give me a model, virtual model, for what their product will look like. At the end, what they have to do is they have to 3D print the actual objects. So they're following the same format as you would have in a product design class. Actually, a client comes in requesting a particular design of a product, and the design team has to be able to reproduce it in order to show the client what it looks like. I like to pass it around so everybody gets an idea what the product is about. So that's the 3D printed model, and these are earbuds. I guess we can pass these around tonight. It could help you. In addition to this, in the engineering technology class, I've been trying to design parts to customize the particular activity the students are doing. In the past, I've done a number of things, but Ryan is going to elaborate a little bit more on this. He's actually helping modifying the claw for the robot. And he's actually going to drive the robot to show you what we've done in terms of designing that claw. So we've actually been able to design parts and be able to modify them to the particular activity that we're doing in the robot. In this particular case, those claws are supposed to pick up a sandfeld tennis ball and drop it into a PVC pipe that's 2.5 inches in diameter. So it's it has to be done very precisely. This is another idea with Ryan. I have to give full credit because he actually brought it to my attention. Back in the end of last year, I wrote in a newspaper article regarding the printing of a prosthetic hand. We added this to the curriculum on the fly, and we're hoping that in the future we can actually find students in our district that can benefit from this. And again, Ryan is going to elaborate more about this. But the prosthetic hand is fully functional, and it can be readapted to any child of any particular age. The nice thing about it too is the fact that as the child grows, we can print to fit whatever size hand or wrist he has. The 3D printing also has other applications. For example, on the left, you see an image of Michelangelo's David being scanned in 3D. I was able to download that image off the internet, and I was able to print out the Michelangelo. The nice thing about it is that if you're teaching an art class and you want to have students actually see the final sculpture, you don't have to go to Italy. You can actually print them out. This is beautiful. In addition to that, up on the top, you see a fossil of a dinosaur, and I believe that we have a request at the high school for printing this. So this is something that can be used again in one of the sciences. In chemistry and physics, you can actually design and print out molecules. I've had requests for that at the high school and the science department as well, which is very nice. And then notice in the middle slide is new technology. They're actually printing out, at this point, human tissue. And I think Dr. Mast, I'm sorry, but you reminded me that they're actually doing this to the extent that the tissue is degradable, so that it supports structures either, in this particular case, with an infant. Here we're looking at an ear. They can actually implant that into the cochlea and have a person who's deaf able to hear. So as you can see, the technology is developing very rapidly, and I think that the kids in our school are taking advantage of this on a ground level. So by the time they get into college and in the professional setting, they will have had that exposure, which I think is really clear. Thank you. And then Ryan was going to talk a little bit about the prosthetic hand.
So what I have here is the 3D printed hand that we printed out in class.
Yeah, boy.
We're all a little off tonight. Unless it glows in the dark, we can
So the way I came about the idea of printing this hand is I was reading a magazine one day and I found an article about a young girl who suffered from a hand disorder where she was essentially born without the upper part of her hand, including the fingers and the palm. And what this girl had done was someone contacted her and 3D printed a prosthetic hand out for her, which was fitted to fit onto her hand, and she uses this hand, and I thought that this was a pretty cool idea, knowing that in CAD we 3D print and we use it for in-class models. So I brought the article in, and I said, wouldn't it be cool if we could 3D print this out in our own classroom? So we went online and did research, and we found the model online, and we were actually able to print out the exact same hand, assemble it, and that's what we have right here. And this hand can be adapted and rescaled to fit any size person, so age isn't a factor. And the really cool thing about this hand is that it's functional. If the person can move their wrist, they can actually close the hand and use it in everyday life. So what this shows is that what we're doing in the classroom really has relation to the real world. Because if students are shown the technology to do things like this in the classroom, that's a huge advantage once they get out into the real world. So that's pretty much sums it up for the hand.
Could you talk a little bit about how much it would cost for a prosthetic normally for a child?
Well, a normal prosthetic for a child or any person is in the upwards of $50,000 to $60,000, whereas the material to print this is roughly $20. So that's a huge difference in cost. And the nice thing is, if a child has this disease, they're still growing. So a new prosthetic would be necessary as they continue to grow, and their hand requires a larger size prosthetic. So the cheap cost of this would make it much better and much cheaper to keep the child with a prosthetic. So, as well as CAD, Mr. Rodriguez also teaches an engineering technology class where we use robotics to compete against each other. And recently, we have integrated 3D printing into our robotics. And what we have here is a robot that was adapted with a 3D printed claw to carry out a certain function, which is to pick up the ball, which is part of the competition that we do in class. So here I'll demonstrate. So as you can see, the 3D printed claw is a great addition to have in the robotics program and the engineering tech program, because it allows for new pieces and new new ideas to basically be created and used in the class. And it just goes to show again how 3D printing is used in a wide variety of courses and classes.
So the robot also has a battery
Microphone.
we design. You know, we design only the claw, but we're trying to modify other aspects of the robot in terms of things that didn't come with the set. For example, the battery holder in the back. We designed and printed that, so that can be literally just snapped into place for easy play, but normally it's difficult to have the battery just kind of jostles around. So, you know, as the need arises, we come up with new ideas. And I think that's the focus of, you know, having a good engineering program that utilizes 3D printing to that degree. So, and I'm hoping it keeps growing. Any questions? Yeah.
Well, we'll go back to the, where we have microphones.
Yes,
I wanted to know how much the machine cost in 2013,
it costs us $2,200.
and how much will it cost now?
I'm sorry?
How much
The
will it
price
cost?
has dropped substantially because right now, the quality is going up and the price is going down. However, the idea is to have a level of resolution that we'll be able to print the objects we need on a quality level. So roughly the price has dropped maybe about $200, somewhere in that range. But you can get printers, depending on your particular needs, from $600 all the way to $5,000 to $10,000, depending on the size of what you're printing. So our machine can print in an envelope about 10 inches long, 10 inches high, and 6 deep. Anything is within that parameter we can print. And we can do multiple prints on the plate. Multiple parts can be printed at the same time. So it's very, very efficient in that respect.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Could you also just talk a little bit about the material that's used?
Using what they call PLA plastic, it's a biodegradable material. The reel that I buy is about 2 pounds and it's about $30. The thickness is 1.75 millimeters, but the extrusion is 100 microns. So one reel weighing in maybe about a pound and a half, you can get a lot out of it. It's very, very effective in that respect. So, and they're coming out with new materials. Carbon fiber included in the plastic, so you can make it much stronger. I believe that HP is coming out with a printer that you can actually decide what material you want, whether you want elasticity, or whether you want greater malleability, or greater strength in the material. So there's a lot of new technology coming down the line to improve depending on the quality of what you want. So it's really very, very dynamic field. Very dynamic. Yes.
So you can recycle this material
Yes.
too and then make something else out of it?
Well, we don't have that capacity, but you can. You can take the material, you can, crush it again and melt it and extrude it into a filament and reuse it again, which is very nice.
Anyone else? Mrs. Warner?
I wanted to tell you that my son Nate took CAD with you
Hey,
a couple of years, yep.
okay,
He's now at Stevens in the engineering program.
oh, nice.
And I talked to him today, knowing that you'd be here, and he said you were a great teacher and learned a lot, and he actually won his robotics competition as a freshman there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so you should really feel good. He also was able to get, they have jobs, the co-op program, and because he knew CAD, he had a real step up on some of the
Oh,
other.
nice to hear that.
So
Very nice.
I think, you should take some pride in that. Of course, we're proud of all our teachers, but I feel like I have a personal link here. Of course, I think this is such a terrific program, I remember many years ago, I don't think it was you, but there was someone here asking for this printer. And it was really years ago. Anyway, it was, we couldn't do it at the time, but we obviously since did. So how many printers do you have?
Right now, I only have one.
Hmm.
And it's actually, I'm used to it so much that some of the parts are totally replaceable.
Right.
So I think, and again, one of the reasons why I want to do this is because I want to see if I can get other disciplines on board to utilize the machine. So maybe at some point in time, I'll speak to Mr. George about having an in-house workshop where I can teach maybe a few steps involved in the 3D modeling,
Yeah.
so they can actually do some basic printing on their own. I
Right.
can see where it can be used practically at every grade level.
Yeah,
That was the
right.
workshop.
And, the fact that it's, concrete, I think is
Exactly.
certainly, you both emphasized that a lot, certainly helpful for students, you know, in design in all sorts of ways, so. But you said the printer costs $2,200. That's amazing to me. How long would it take, so you said the battery add-on was something that you designed and did. About how long does it take to, you know, what are the steps in the project and how long does it take for those things?
Well, from start to finish, assuming that I do something from scratch, if I design something from scratch, depending on, I mean, what I have to do is first model it in 3D, then I have to convert it to an STL file, stereolithography file, which is a file the machine understands. And then it has to be converted to what's called a G-code, which software comes already preloaded for that. So from start to finish, it may take something as simple as that a couple hours.
Okay, and then,
But the hand, however, should act, but this hand, it takes much longer, because of the component parts of the assembly software.
but how long will it take to print the object?
Oh, depending on the level of resolution. The machine can be set for 3 different levels, very coarse, very fine, and medium, which I usually do medium print, for the quality of work we need. But for fine, it will really give you a very smooth finish, like for example, the mouse. You can
Right.
see how smooth that
Right.
came out, that's a fine finish.
Right.
That would take maybe about 45 minutes, and it's multiple parts by the way. So this, that,
Sure,
3
yeah.
parts, print separately.
So all the parts take 25 minutes to do?
Again, depending on the resolution, of the one or the option.
I'm talking for medium.
Around 45 minutes to an hour,
Right,
and
okay.
some objects may take 20 minutes.
So is there a queue for?
Once I have the files on my laptop, I can put them on a flash drive, I put it on the machine, and I can just load them at will. I can queue them to print.
It just sounds terrific.
Bless you.
Thank you.
So thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome,
you
you're
for.
welcome, and I'm glad that you done it for me.
He
Okay,
did.
I think Mr. Whitehouse is,
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Rodriguez, and I'm sorry, the student's name, your name was what?
Ryan's ready.
Ryan. Ryan, thank you. I wanna congratulate you, both of you, for delivering this curriculum, I guess in some cases, designing it. And from Ryan and your peers in the class, just the stuff that the output there. I was teasing walking by, I mean, I see Dr. Heisey here in the audience, and, you know, with the bust of David, I mean, I see just another revenue stream. We could open a gift shop and all the tchotchkes we could sell. There, I mean, it's very neat. I mean, again, if it's coming from a true 3D download from the original, I mean, you're gonna get every little fine detail. I wanna, again, stress for those that are watching, some of the newer stuff that we do talk a lot, you know, what's been dominating the news is PARCC testing and the math and the language arts. And we certainly stress that, and those things are very important to build a good educational foundation. But it's these cutting edge, real world applications that our students are able to touch that I think really helps the students of Scotch Plains and Fanwood, as Mrs. Warner shared her son's experience, be able to move on and have had the background to, or at least the exposure to this. Ryan, I think this will serve you well. I too saw an article, it was about a month ago, and it was Robert Downey Jr. had brought a prosthetic arm. Again, with Dr. Heise in the office, I'm not, in the audience, I'm not necessarily suggesting that in the future you don your Iron Man tights and go out there to deliver these as Mr. Rodriguez finds those in our communities in need. But again, going back to the real world applications, we talk about STEM, science, technology, engineering and mathematics. I was reading something recently where someone has changed it to STEAM, where they added the A for arts, so that we don't lose sight of that component. And when I see the, again, the bust of David there, that was the first note I wrote was STEM migrating to STEAM, because it just supports so many other curriculum or content areas. I am hoping that the different supervisors of the different content are aware of the good things you're doing and the support, not only to our students, but to their curriculum that you're able to provide. I just think from all around education for our high school, it just has the potential to touch so many areas. So this was a fantastic presentation. It's great to see what's happening in our classrooms, and thank you both.
Thank you.
Mrs. Sherman?
I'm curious also too, I know we have a lot of guys interested in this, but how many young ladies are involved in this?
In the department per se, or? That's the interesting thing. Over the years, I've spoken to guys about this, because I don't know why, but my area is always disproportionate. More guys than women. And I always wanted to change that. I don't know why, it just happens. But I do have women in my classes.
What's the
Small-
ratio?
The ratio at this point is probably 8-2. It's come up a little bit over the years, surprisingly enough. But I've had, I had students who have succeeded in the program across the board, both male and female, doing very well. I mean, Ryan's a good example of the kind of student we have. The caliber students that can do this kind of work, which I'm really proud to have in my class.
It's fabulous.
Yeah.
Anyone else have questions?
Maybe see the bus and the handle
Oh, absolutely.
I would like to just say, being, in a room when you came to the curriculum committee, I don't know who's more excited, our board members or the students that came to show it, but as Mr. Whitehouse was saying, we really have been stressing this cross-content teaching and working, so anything we can do, I think to Mrs. Shermer's point about young women going into engineering and sciences, that the more we can embed this type of thing across the curriculum, the more students it will reach at more levels. So it's a wonderful thing you're doing, and you're clearly creating an environment where students feel the sense that they're free to innovate, where Ryan is a good example of that, coming in with something that was meaningful to him and bringing it to the other students. That's really the best education, right there, is by being part of the process of knowing it, and you created that environment for them. So thank you very much, and thank you so much for coming out tonight.
Thank you so much.
Yes, so I want to add my thanks to the curriculum committee too for making sure that we also got to hear about this and see some of the things. And when you talk about other disciplines, I know that there are a lot of art departments and at the university levels too, doing things with 3D printing. So I know you mentioned science, but I think, as you were saying, there are multiple disciplines where you could really.
Absolutely, I think many of us can say that, there's no question about it.
So hopefully you all will do a workshop for other faculty members. And I think Mr. Whitehouse has an idea, instead of tchotchkes, all those people who have a missing piece to their lawnmower or whatever it is, we can set it up and they don't want to spend $300 or $500 to get a new whatever.
Interestingly enough, when I
Maybe
first-
Mrs. Saradaki, we can let the maintenance people know.
when we first started, the students wanted to print iPhone cases.
Of course they did.
So then one kid says, well, why don't we just sell them? I said, oh boy, now we're gonna start a business. I didn't want to commercialize, I wanted to make sure that the learning was first.
Yeah.
So I kind of cut the string on that one, because I didn't want to take that route. But obviously enough, you could make a business out of it, I mean, there's no question about it. A lot of people have done that.
We have an entrepreneur program,
Okay.
right?
Yeah, so you might be able to combine with them. And I thank the board members for pointing out and reminding all of us, as well as the public, about after testing and going into more testing, that this is really the kinds of learning that stays with students. And I wanted to ask Ryan, are you planning to maybe go in this direction? Because it's wonderful, one, that you brought in ideas, and it's wonderful that you picked up on, all the students' interests.
Well, right now I'm committed to growing College of Engineering for electrical and computer engineering. So I'm really excited for that, and I know that the stuff that I've learned in this class will serve me well in my education.
Well, we always like to hear how our alumni are doing, and just like Mrs. Warner was reporting on, her son come back and give us a report.
Well, yeah, Nate graduated.
2 years ago, he was a sophomore.
So thank you again. Thank you, Dr. Heisey. And to both of you, we really appreciate you taking the time to come tonight. And congratulations on moving on and graduating and doing interesting things. We're very proud of you, and thank you for being a wonderful teacher.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you
both.
both.
I've heard a little bit about some of this so that they can report on these really positive things and not just, not that you don't report on positive things, but a lot of times the things we have are not always positive.
And I just want to add my thanks and also know that how happy I am that you situated and you framed this in the problem-based learning. Because it's one thing for kids to catch on to new dynamics of, interesting technological developments, but when kids can take it and move that back into that whole framework of solving problems and the connection to the real world needs that you so amply demonstrated here this evening, it's just a wonderful way that we can advance accomplishments to benefit beyond the learning we have in the classroom to benefit people that really will be helped. I know that Ryan had the opportunity to be seen in a video that we put together to be part of a statewide initiative called Innovate New Jersey, where we're sharing ideas among with other districts. So I want to thank both of you for that, because Mr. Rodriguez, you were in that as well. And we look forward to seeing how the other districts respond and the good learning we'll get from them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so are there any other committee reports? I know we had meeting reports last week. Okay, Mrs. Winsberg.
We had a shared services meeting on Monday. On our agenda, there was brief discussion about state routes to school grants. The three entities, I think, are going to work together toward applying for one. We are working out those details. There's more on the side, some separate meetings we're going to have to They both municipalities thanked us very much for providing water for their fuel stations. They were very happy with more programming coming out of our schools, and they're happy to have that. So, there was brief discussion about the parking situation at Mountain School. We need to move forward in measuring out space and other sense of that. So we can't really do much more with that there. It was mentioned about moving voting stations out of our schools to alternate locations. We need to, I think, come up with a list of alternate locations to bring to the Board of Elections. And that pretty much is all the items on the agenda that I think would get our,
Okay, thank you. Are there comments or questions? Okay.
Just, I know that, it's early on, but we're talking about moving the polling stations. Do you have any idea of what that process is like, or that's
from the discussions we've had, I think that we need to take the initiative of finding alternate sites, that the Board of Elections will do that, we need to do that, and then propose it to them, and then go from there, and then they have to go. Yeah, I'm not really certain of the process, but we need to come up with alternate sites first.
Will we, I was able to provide any support in that you're going to take or something?
There wasn't a lot of, we didn't get into the specifics of which sites were, where we might be.
Any other municipalities that have the schools, or where do they have their elections at?
Well, even here, we have elections at lots of locations besides the schools, and not all our schools are voting sites. We have, I know, I personally vote at a church that's near my house. I know, there are other buildings that we could use for that, municipal buildings could be used potentially, and we haven't looked at the specifics of what buildings and where voting booths would be set up, but in some municipalities that have that, possible, maybe some municipalities have voting at fire stations or first aid stations. There are lots of alternatives to school buildings that could be, but it really, they try to keep the buildings within the area of the district itself, so like we couldn't move voting from Cole's School to the first aid station over by South Side Field. It would have to be closer to where that voting district is. So that would need to be looked into as well. What's the nearest facilities that we can use?
Okay, thank you very much for that report. Mrs. Warner, you
Yes, the negotiations committee met with the SPFEA this week, and we had another long and productive session. Of course, the details are confidential, we don't bargain in public, but I think the board and the public should know that we are working hard with our teachers. Both sides are really trying to reach an agreement. I don't see anything in the immediate future, but we are working on this. We have a couple of other meetings scheduled for the next few weeks.
Okay, thank you for that update. Anyone else with the committee report? I know we had some last week. Okay, then we'll move on to, now I see, did we have to approve the, didn't we approve the budget last week?
No.
We have to approve it again now, right?
Yes.
It's been approved by the county, so now, okay. Can I have a motion then for this final adoption?
You need to open it to for public hearing first.
I don't know. Well, we certainly can open it for public
Yeah, I
hearing.
think you should.
If there's anyone who would like to come to the microphone. Unfortunately, there isn't anyone, so can I, and we have had a number, for the public who are watching on TV, we have had a number of sessions where the public has had an opportunity to come out and talk and ask questions about the budget. The superintendent has held a number of get-togethers talking about the budget, and that may be one of the reasons why there's no one here to speak this evening. And I know it was also discussed in detail in the perspective that went out recently as well. So can we have a motion?
I will make a motion.
Do you want to go ahead and just read it?
Okay, move that the Board of Education approves the following resolution. Be it resolved that the Scotch Plains Family Board of Education hereby approves submission to the Executive County Superintendent of Schools the final budget for the 2015-2016 school year as follows. The general fund budget, $86,360,285. The budget local tax levy, $81,930,358. Special revenue fund, $2,578,352. The debt service fund, $1,581,675. DS? Debt service. Thank you. Debt service budget local tax levy, $1,581,675. The total general and debt levy, $83,512,033. The total budget, $90,520,312.
Okay, is there, all those in favor? Oh, okay, comment? I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand.
Yes, I'd like to comment. I want to explain my vote, which will be no vote. I have many concerns with this budget. No, I don't have many, I have one concern with the budget. And that is that it seems to be a budget that is going to include full-day kindergarten funding. And I say this only because we all received an email from Mr. Whitehouse, Chair of the Finance Committee, and in the email, he went to some length to tell us that the banked cap was important to the district because it will allow us to raise more tax levy funds outside of the 2%, which is an absolute fact. But he went on to say that the reason this was important is that we could be funding full-day kindergarten. And that, of course, was a surprise to me. Not a surprise, but we had talked about the value of full-day kindergarten and the strategic plan. The 2014-17 strategic plan has about 20, 25 goals in it. One of them is, one group of goals pertains to early childhood, and one of those 3 goals in there says that we will explore implementation of full-day kindergarten. And at our last meeting, the superintendent indicated that, yes, we were going to spend some time reviewing the value of full-day kindergarten and whether or not we should implement it. And I think that that's the wise thing to do. But based on the chair's report, I'm concerned that we're not stopping to review where, and I don't know of the review. We're spending, we just learned today, $5.2 million to add classrooms for full-day kindergarten. That would seriously deplete the hard-earned money we have and built up in our capital reserves. We started out those capital reserves in 2011 with about $50,000. We now have over $5 million in them. There's one reason we have that, and that is that the teachers have been contributing to their health care benefits. So that, as required by the state, enables us to build up these reserves. I don't think that, I think we should really study very carefully whether or not we want to spend $5.2 million on 2.5 hours of additional education for 314 students in kindergarten. So I hope we can set up a special committee or task force of the board so that we can look very closely at full-day kindergarten. Although the bank cap would cover the operating costs, I think, I'm told by the business administrator, we all know that there are a lot of issues pending in the state and locally that could also require additional funding. State aid may go down, not just remain static, and the pension funding, we may be forced to continue the pension. start funding pension from current coppers. So there just seem to be so many issues before us. I am concerned about this budget.
Okay, well, I do want to, I think Mr. Whitehouse, are you wanting to say something? I want to clarify for
I'll
the
give you an
public
opportunity. Sure, go ahead.
that, because I said it last week, that no decision has been made about full-day kindergarten. And there, it is in the strategic plan to conduct a study, and that's what would take place under that process. The extra classrooms, it's an opportunity to have extra space, and whether it's full-day kindergarten, whether we have the opportunity to bring students back to the district for special education, or how we might be able to use that space is undetermined at this time. But Mr. Whitehouse, did you have something else you wanted to add to that?
I do.
I see you
I
flipping
do.
over there.
I'm flipping, yes. Yeah, I just want to just clarify a couple things, only because I would hate, after being on the board this long, that next week's headline is based on a quote of Mr. Whitehouse's email said, "This will allow us to raise taxes." The bank cap,
That's
bring
not
it
what
back
I
cap
said.
in. But, well, that's what I grabbed, and it does. Bank cap, again, for the benefit of the public, is basically, in years past, the board is allowed legally to raise revenue up to 2%, the cap. Board, our municipalities and the like. When we do not go to that maximum, we can bank the amount that we did not bring. For instance, if it was 1.5%, we can bank that 0.5%. After, I don't recall if it's 4 years, 5 years, but there's a period where it just then goes away, and if you haven't used it, you lost the bank. A year ago, we let some expire. I believe we may have taken a small portion in, and we returned some to the taxpayers. And we let some just go away because we didn't need it. One of the things that we have been strong about in this board over the years is when we feel we don't need your money, we don't ask for it. From the percent of the tax levy in the budget to imposing a short-term participation fee, and 2 years later, when we were in a better position, taking that fee away for everything from band to athletics. We had promised at the time that we were hoping it would be a short term, but we weren't sure. In fact, it was Mrs. Bauer, I recall clearly saying, I think when we're crafting this budget, if we are in a better position, we need to eliminate that if at all possible. So I think over time, we have been prudent when we're talking about tax levies and budgets. To the point of bank cap and bringing some back, as my email did, and I want to be clear too, from an email standpoint, there's the sensitivity of open public meeting laws, and the email was a committee report that we do send out to all board members, just so that there's no question as to that. There was no accusations or anything, but I don't want anyone out in the public to see. The thing about the bank cap and what I think also needs to be clarified is, as Mrs. Warner has accurately stated, we have been able to bring money into the district where we have increased our reserves and have been able to change all the HVAC systems without asking for bonding. Do some one-time things without overlaying recurring costs into our budget. When we saw that there would be increased revenue through the increased contribution of our employees, that was phased in over the course of 4 years. I think it's important for the public to know, because this was never really highlighted, I think, in any district of the state of New Jersey, because every district of the state of New Jersey did receive this additional revenue over the course of 4 years. That has acted acted as a buffer for utility costs that go up by more than 2%, for healthcare costs, a big portion of the budget, and a portion that does not have a 2% cap on it. So for over the course of a few years, not only were we able to put money away in reserves, do one-time expenditures, again, without infusing recurring costs, without a recurring revenue stream, without, again, going to bonding, but it also allowed for a buffer against many expenses in our budget that exceed the 2% cap. So when I'm talking about a 2% cap, yes, a portion of it, if we were to implement full-day kindergarten, would be absorbed with that. But I think we also need to be aware that in the coming years, I don't believe our utilities, our healthcare, or other driving expenses that we have are going to be state imposed, can only go up 2%. And if they don't, and we only have the ability to raise revenue 2%, we are going to be cutting things. I believe if we bring in bank cap, and remember, bank cap isn't just extra money, it's money that we didn't ask for over the last 4 years because we didn't feel we needed it, we didn't take it then. This will also shield us from expenses that go on above 2% and not force us to potentially cut further programs. So I just want to be clear on that. The final thing is, when we vote on a budget, again, for the benefit of the public, we've had budget presentations, numerous, over the budget season, as we call it. And it covers everything from where the direction of special ed is going, to our facilities, to curriculum. But at the end of the day, that really is just a roadmap. We are not voting tonight on anything but a dollar amount. And we would be quite surprised if there was a drastic change from what Ms. Edwards had shared with us weeks and weeks ago as to the direction special ed department would be taking as far as either bringing programs in, increasing or focusing on OTPT, anything like that. So if there was a drastic change, we should hear about it, because that's kind of the direction that we would expect that the money in this budget is supporting. But if there is a change, we can't as board members say, well, in April, we voted on this because you told us that. Because we can hold them to a direction, but not every detail. This budget vote is strictly a dollar amount. How we expect to spend it, there is a roadmap, and we can agree or disagree, and we should be voting our conscience on that, and however we feel. But I think that's important. As far as pre-K or all-day kindergarten, right, it's not set in stone. As I had shared last week, though, I do believe we're about one of the 30% minority that does not have it. And I'll share with you a very quick story from,
It's 20%.
20% of the state that does not have full-day kindergarten. I'll share with you a story of my daughter who was taught in 2 different districts last year, her first year of teaching. She had 2 leave replacements. First district she had, and it just, sometimes you just get lucky with the timing. Those students did not have full-day kindergarten, and I'm talking, this is an I district. This is a high-achieving district. Their kids are smart. They get family support and all the good things that happen with I districts. They did not have full-day kindergarten. Right around Thanksgiving, she switched to another district. When that leave replacement ended, it was a seamless transition, and those students, same grade, and they were both first grades, and they were coming from a district or coming from a position of her students had the benefit of full-day kindergarten. When I was commenting on this just a week ago, and again, it's one story, one person, 1 year, in 2 different districts. Night and day was how she put it. And again, these were first graders, and for every study that you say they lose it by 3rd grade or 4th grade, there's another one that says that this stuff is important as well. The stuff is still out there. But my point is, anecdotally, I'm in support of it if that is the direction administration takes, decides to take us, and again, we will support the strategic plan. So, I'm not here to debate kindergarten, full-day kindergarten, but I did want to make sure that the understanding is clear on this bank cap piece, that, yeah, we're asking for money above the 2% cap, but there are reasons for it beyond just because we can. I think there's sound reasons, and they are looking further out into the future than just one budget. So, thanks.
Okay, just a second. Oh, nobody else? Okay.
I have a question, do you know the percentages that will raise above money?
Oh, yeah, that's, actually, I was just looking to see if I had it here, the dollar difference.
But again, it's from previous years where we were below.
It's another $40 in taxes.
Is that what it is? Is it 40? Thank you, but I know
I don't know
it's.
the percentages, but it's another $40 in Scotch Plains. And in Fanwood, the amount would go down, but it's going up. So it's like, it's really hard to get a percentage.
It's all in the, it's all on the website. And it's all in the perspective, which I know is posted on the website. So if the public would like to look, it is online. I think if people didn't get to go to the meetings.
But to be clear, as Mr. White has pointed out, tonight we are not voting on full-day kindergarten. We are voting on budget as it's been presented, which is a plan, just the way you do a house budget, right? Or how we operate this district. So that's, has to be kept, how the public understand that.
I have one more question, so there's nothing in here that would go into full-day kindergarten? Would be tapping anymore, or you're including?
From the standpoint of the facilities, that money is not in the operating budget, that's in the reserves that have been built up. So think about it as a bank account. Now, to Mrs. Warner's point, I think what she's saying is, she has questions as to if we were to, could that money be better
I'll let you know
spent?
what I'm saying.
So, but as far as the operating budget, it could be, there will be funds there, but that will be based on the direction and recommendation of the administration.
I have one more question too, because I'm fairly little this, but if it is mandated that we do have to have a full day, employed by the government, I hear that that would be a possibility too. Would they then throw in more money to us, the state at all, so we still have to do it on our own anyway?
Well, based on track record, I would say highly unlikely, my opinion.
Yeah, my opinion is it'd be pretty unlikely, but you'll get 9 different opinions.
I know the grant programs that we applied for, the ROD grants, they specifically said that if you're a district looking at full-day kindergarten, do not apply for this grant, it doesn't apply.
I don't want-
But they might raise the two, allow you to go above the 2% cap, obviously, if they mandate
Were you wanting to make a comment, Dr. Hayes? Does anybody else have a comment or a question about the budget before we vote?
it. Oh,
I think that the two things, that to Mr. Whitehouse's point, we estimated approximately $1 million in bank account that we have not used over time.
I think it was about 1.3.
Not used.
So that's available to us.
No, it's
No.
no longer available. So
So that we gave back to the public?
we have given back
It's not by mistake,
No,
no, it's by intention.
No, not by mistake. Secondly, we are in the minority of districts across the state that have not supported public kindergarten. So, to Mr. Whitehouse's point, and it was one of the things that the community expressed an interest in. The budget does not say that this is going to happen right away. What it says is that we have created the opportunity to make it worthwhile to look at what we want to happen, because we can probably find a way to create things that would be needed without going out for a bond. And as has been the past in the time that I've been here as superintendent, we have very carefully tried to make sure that building projects and renovations that have been done within the operating budget.
I'll also, I want to make clear that this budget does not specifically include full-day kindergarten. Anything that we are moving forward as far as full-day kindergarten has to be separately voted on. So the board will have an opportunity at that time, if there are plans for construction, if there are, moving forward with any construction cost bidding, anything like that. That's not in here, no, that, the board would have to vote separately on that.
Mrs. Warner?
I have two things, but first, Ms. Saradaki, does the board need to vote on the use of the operating funds once we raise the cap and the revenue comes in?
Yes, you would have to vote on the personnel that are being hired to.
So it becomes a personnel vote, not a budget vote.
After the curriculum vote too.
And curriculum.
Every
Yes.
step
As
of,
per usual
Yes.
procedure.
every step of the way, there are decisions that will need to be made by the board, and none of those decisions are being made tonight.
Okay, it, you know, it really is confusing, and I've been with this board for a long time, but, you know, it is confusing to understand what this budget is doing with, you know, and I don't want to go back over this ground, but we are creating the opportunity, to use your words, Dr. Hayes, and tell me if I'm wrong, to fund and create a full-day kindergarten program with this budget.
What I said was, the funding in the budget supports our current levels of program. We already have supported adding money to capital reserve. How the district decides to use the capital reserve is not being decided tonight.
I understand that, I'm not addressing the capital reserves at all. I am talking about the additional funds in the operating budget, which we're voting on tonight.
Which are there that can support any number of initiatives.
The only additional funds in the operating budget is a portion of an employee, and that was the elementary supervisor. The balance of the bank cap is being committed to capital reserve, and that can be used either to move forward with construction for full-day kindergarten facilities. It could be used for other facility needs.
But in order to fund teachers, the bank cap, and maybe this is the confusion, the bank cap needs to be in the operating budget to pay salaries.
In another year. This year, it's being committed to go into capital reserve.
All right, that was not clear to me. My understanding was that the money, that we were creating using the bank cap to create operating funds.
Okay. Yeah, it's going into capital reserve this year.
With one exception and one position that we need regardless.
Okay, so I did have point two, which is I think important, given Mr. Whitehouse's concern about the appearance of taxes. I do want to make clear that I am in favor of using the bank cap. This was not any, I think that we face many financial challenges ahead, many uncertainties, and it is wise for us to go ahead and use the bank cap. That's not what my issue is.
And I just wanted to say too, the 1.3 million that Mrs. Saradaki was referring to, we are definitely in the minority in the state having given back bank cap. Okay, if there are not any more questions or comments, then we'll take a roll call. I think Mrs. Saradaki on the budget.
Mrs. Cleary.
Yes.
Mrs. Winthrop. Dr. Kulikowski.
Yes.
Mrs. Shermer.
Yes.
Mr. Whitehouse.
Yes.
Mrs. Warner.
Yes.
Mrs. Bauer.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, thank you. The letters to the board, we already mentioned these last week. We had one regarding mentioning from Mr. Lewis about the organization Contact We Care, and that information is on our website, and we're looking forward to having a Girl Scout troop here who's earning a badge, and they will come at some point. That was from Doris Eckstein. So I think we'll move on to the superintendent's report, Dr. Hayes.
Thank you, Mrs. Miller. Tonight, that I would ask that the board approve, we have to approve the harassment, intimidation, and bullying report that affirms the superintendent's decisions in the 9 harassment, intimidation, and bullying cases reported during the executive sessions on March 19th and 26th, 2015.
Second.
Okay. Questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Tonight, I am also asking for approval of 2 field trip requests. Our Scotch Plains Family varsity football team has the opportunity to work with the New York Jets in their coaching internship program. This is a trip, the culminating trip will take place on June 12, 2015. And in addition, students at Terrell Middle School's HERO program are eager to visit New York City, and they are going to participate in the tour. This gives them insights into key Manhattan sites, and they learn about the history and growth of Manhattan in an interactive experience.
So moved. Second. Questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And we have a late entry into our Creative Summer Workshop that will be taking place this summer. I'd like the board to include the following class as an addition to the Creative Summer Workshop. It's for a Taekwondo, a non-contact Taekwondo, that should be emphasized for students in grades 3 through grade 5. And this will be taught by Chris Loja, one of our school psychologists.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And then I would ask that the board approve the personnel agenda as reviewed in exec this evening.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Mrs. Sarabak, you want to call the roll?
Dr. Gilberto? Yes. Mrs. Cleary? Yes. Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Mr. Whitehouse?
Yes.
Mrs. Winkler? Yes. Mrs. Warner?
Yep.
Mrs. Bauer?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, and that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. So in accordance with policy 9322-R, it's an opportunity for the public, if you want to get a microphone. We don't, you want to come? We have the press here. Okay, so we'll move on to the business functions, Mrs. Saradaki.
Okay, I'll go over the one, actually, we're going right.
Because I should say that we discussed things last week at our agenda setting meeting, so sometimes if there are not as many questions, it could be because we discussed them last week.
Okay, 1 BUS is the approval of staff training on the report dated April 30th, 2015. 2 BUS is acknowledgement of the receipt of disbursement listings for the month of March 2015. 3 BUS is the receipt of the security and fire reports for the month of March 2015. 4 BUS was approved at last week's meeting. It's an adjustment to the education enrichment grant. 5 BUS is the 2015-2016 monthly tax payments from municipalities. It's scheduled for the full 2015-16 school year. 6 BUS is award of a contract for an auditor for 2015-16 school audit. And this is where we received 4 proposals, and the proposal chosen by the Finance Committee was Isobachia at the cost of $45,000. 7, 8, and 9 BUS were all approved at the April 23rd meeting. 10 BUS is a renewal of the Power School consultation services with RAS Technology Consultants at the amount of $12,000 for the 2015-16
11 BUS is participation in the Morris County Educational Co-op pricing system. There's no cost involved with this, it's just a required resolution each year. 12 BUS is a resolution for a student that we have at New Road School in disregard fees for lunch and student meals. 13 BUS was approved at the last meeting. 14 BUS is approval of additional vendor-related services from First Children and Kathleen Graziano. Amount of $10,000 for First Children and Kathleen Graziano, the amount of $15,000. 15 BUS is approval to advertise for sale of weight room equipment that we no longer use in the district. 16 BUS is a contract renewal with CC Productions Incorporated, which is our cafeteria software and hardware for serving lunch. 17 BUS is receipt of the business reports, which is the board secretary report, the treasurer of school funds report, and the budget adjustments. 18 BUS is approval of the bill list in the amount of $3,161,514.87 for the period March 21st through April 24th. 19 BUS was approved at the last meeting. 20 BUS is an amendment to the resolution for legal services. We originally made this resolution in June 2014 for the 2014-15 school year. We did not include the required expected annual amount in that, so this includes the expected annual amount. 21, 22, 23, and 24 were all approved April 23rd. 25 BUS is approval of the architect for a roofing project at the high school, School 1, and McGinn Elementary School. It's request that Potter Architects be approved for the high school in the amount of $9,750, School 1 in the amount of $14,200, and McGinn in the amount of $54,500. 26 BUS is approval of vendor to perform asset inventory audit. Our auditors have, we have done this periodically, our auditors have recommended that we do this more often. The fee last year was for full audit was $6,400. This year he's doing a catch-up audit, and so it's only going to cost us $2,200. So, then on the additions, let's see, 27 BUS. These are approval of amendments to the long-range facility plan. These are just to have in the plan in case we ever decide to move forward with them. The state requires that these be in our plan. Part of them are the roofing projects at McGinn, School 1, and the high school, and new kindergarten classroom additions at McGinn and Evergreen schools. And we're just asking that the board approves adding these to our long-range facility plan. 28 BUS is purchase and installation of cafeteria tables at School 1. The money for this comes out of the cafeteria account. It does not come out of the general fund. And the amount of the cafeteria tables, it says 6, but they're actually double deep, so it's actually 12 sets of tables. And the amount is $41,616, and that's under the Ed Data Services contract. I think that's it.
Okay, questions and comments? This is Dr. Kulikowski.
For number 28, what is School 1 using as tables now? They have tables, they're very old. Two sets of them are broken and cannot be used. They really don't have as much space as they need for the students, and, yeah. Thank you. There's a lot of safety devices built in now that they didn't have.
Mrs. Warner.
So, not to beat the dead horse, but the construction projects that you sent to us for the 2 elementary schools, these are, that came to 5.2 million? These are, is that what you're referring to when you say we're adding it to the long-range facilities plan?
We're adding
adding the option of putting additional classrooms at McGinn and Evergreen into the long-range facility plan. That number has been updated because we have come up between us with possibly another plan, which actually saves us about 800,000 off of that.
Off the 5.2.
We're constantly looking at that and,
Yeah.
um,
So just explain to me how voting on this to put it in is distinct from voting on it to do it.
because to do it, we would have to get your approval to hire an architect. We would have to get your approval, if we went out to bid, to approve the bid. Those are the steps involved in actually doing the facility part of it. There's other steps involved in actually doing the hiring of people and curriculum for a program.
Do we have
We
any
have-
other projects in there that are
Yes,
projects that we,
may or may not do. Yes, we have the full renovation of the second floor of the high school media center in there.
praise the Lord, let's hope we can get to that. Okay.
Yes, we have projects in there that we may or may not do.
Other questions or comments? So you usually block these, is that correct?
Yes.
So
It
if
can be
we,
one vote.
okay, and if somebody, like,
Nobody's made a motion.
Nobody's made a
I'll
motion
make
yet.
a motion.
okay, so you move to approve the ones that are starred and that she just described. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Mr. Whitehouse? Yes,
Sorry.
go ahead.
Is there a reason we're voting on them tonight, to put them in the facilities plan?
Well, the roofing projects have to be put in right now into
But the other projects, the.
just to get them in the plan, since we had a motion, we just combined it all, so that they could be put into the plan.
So I need to vote on them separately.
So you want to vote on 27, take 27 out of the block?
Well,
Okay.
okay.
And then David, you
So
second.
I move,
You amend your motion.
I amend my motion to exclude 27 to be voted on separately.
I'm okay with that as the seconder.
Okay, so all those in favor of all the motions except BUS 27?
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? Okay, so they carry, and now a motion for 27,
So
please?
moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay.
Can I abstain for now?
Well, you, not for now.
You're
you just
abstaining
abstain.
forever.
You can abstain.
No redos.
And then,
Well, we won't, it'll, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it'll go in the plan, but you, yes, you can abstain.
I'd like to do that for now.
Okay. Okay, so, I have, you have it? Okay. So now we're gonna move on to, board policies. I don't think we have any board policies. New board business, other board business. I know requests to attend workshops.
I would like to request to attend the Oregon State Coalition annual meeting. I thank you, May 27th.
Is there anyone else who would like to go on May 27th to the Garden State Coalition annual meeting?
May 27th, Wednesday.
It's a Wednesday morning and it's in Jamesburg.
I may, thank you for putting down, as a may be.
It's a Wednesday. The Commissioner of Education will be there. There'll be a legislative panel, and then they will have a correspondence conversation. Okay. Any other requests to attend workshops? Workshop reports? I do want to give you an update on, from the Garden State Coalition of Schools, speaking of them. I can find my notes. I tried to break it down into a few main areas. One, there's been a task force looking at special education within the state of New Jersey, and they should be coming out with a report soon. And I guess there's been some leaking of this report, and in general, there probably will be no money coming as a result of the suggestions of this task force. And the suggestions will probably revolve around things like doing more shared services and things that are non-money related. But as soon as that information comes out, we'll share that. There was discussion about Common Core and PARC. And one of the concerns are statements that have been made about penalties for districts with opting out, and whether there'll be financial penalties or possibly, if we're lucky, just corrective action plans. So nobody's sure yet what's going to happen with that. And then the biggest issue that was under discussion was related to teacher retirement. And I know it's been in the news a lot lately about funding the teacher's pension, but I don't think that most of the public realizes that the discussion is really moving towards having local taxpayers having to take that over, that that's the state's governor's idea of getting rid of this burden. The discussion was that this will all happen pretty fast, that there will be a lot of decisions made in June. I think the governor has a committee, it's called the Roadmap Commission or something like that. And that it will quickly turn into the Implementation Commission and overnight. And so I know, I'm guessing, I don't know, I haven't spoken to Mrs. Saradaki, but I'm guessing that the pension costs are in the millions of dollars. Somebody who had 1,600 employees and staff members, it was $10 million for their district. So where do you come up with that?
But that's under the current plan.
Under the
Current plan, under
Yes.
the proposed plan, they, if I may say, they cut it down to such a minimal, quote, pension, that it certainly wouldn't be as costly. Sorry to say.
Yes, all that to be determined. You know, there was a lot of discussion about the fact that we also don't really have control over all these things that are being negotiated, whether it's, you know, the state health benefits and the pension and so forth. And two other things that were discussed was the, with the Obamacare and the Cadillac tax and the impact that that will have on our budgets moving forward, and the rates and so forth. And then also the ESEA, people may have been reading about the federal government and what they're doing with the Elementary Secondary Education Act. And in reality, it's kind of looking like they will pass something that takes away some of the federal government's interference in states with education. I don't mean to be pejorative with interference, but there are a lot of mandates that have come down, like NCLD and so forth. So, but that doesn't necessarily mean that whether it's NJ Achieve or whatever it is, that the state of New Jersey will necessarily make changes. So that's another thing that's floating out there. So there were a lot of things being discussed, and I think a lot will happen in the next few months. So we just watch the news and see what's coming our way, and I think we can be thankful we don't have these millions of dollars to pay the pensions, and I think none of us as taxpayers want to take that burden on, but we'll see. I do want to mention that we're one of the trustees districts with Garden State, and we'll be continuing in that role, and I'm glad that we'll have some representation at the annual meeting because, who knows, it could be news there. So that's my report from Garden State. We'll move on to, Dr. Hayes, did you have anything you wanted to add about those topics?
No, I think you did a great job. Dr. Mast and I have attended last Saturday a workshop that was sponsored by school boards on special education. And we did get a preview of some of that task force report. And I would agree with your assessment that it isn't going to lead to huge increases in funding for special education.
Okay. We have a motion here, if somebody would like to make it, so we have buses for project graduation.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, and this is a very nice thing, we'll do a motion for Staff Appreciation Week, and whoever makes the motion, it would be nice if they would read that. Okay.
I'd like to move that on behalf of the Board of Education, the following proclamation be signed by the Board President designating the week of May 4th through 8th, 2015 as Teacher Appreciation Week. Whereas teachers make public schools great, and whereas teachers work to open students' minds to ideas, knowledge, and dreams, and whereas teachers keep American democracy alive by laying the foundation for good citizenship, and whereas teachers fill many roles as listeners, explorers, role models, motivators, and mentors, and whereas teachers continue to influence us long after our school days are only memories. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Scotch Plains Family Board of Education does hereby proclaim May 4th through 8th, 2015 as Teacher Appreciation Week, and May 5th, 2015 as Teacher Appreciation Day, and strongly encourages all members of our community to join with it in personally expressing appreciation to our teachers for their dedication and devotion to their work.
Second. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, and we also have a resolution for our retirees for this year. Is there anyone who would like to read that? Make that motion? Thank you, Mrs. Whitmore.
Move that the board adopt resolutions for the district retirees as completed by administrators. Whereas blank will retire on blank after over blank years of service as a loyal member of the blank school staff. And whereas blank instructed students in grades blank through blank and worked with students in the district's blank school. And whereas blank encouraged students to work hard to reach their potential and instilled optimism and confidence in the students. And whereas blank was a creative and caring teacher who earned the respect and affection of the students and the staff, the administration, and his or her colleagues in his many years of unselfish commitment to the district. Now therefore be it resolved that the Scotch Plains Family Board of Education recognizes and commends blank for his or her outstanding service and extends to him or her all best wishes for good health and happiness in his or her well-deserved retirement.
I'll second the blankety blank.
Okay, so we're, all those in favor of this recognition of our retirees?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. And the approval of the minutes are for the 2 March meetings, open agenda and public, and the executive session.
So moved.
Anybody abstain? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Policy 9322-R. I don't think we have anybody to come to the microphone, so we'll move on to the good of the order.
I have 2 things for the good of
Yes,
the order.
Dr. Hayes.
First of all, I'd like to commend our music department. Last night, I had the opportunity to attend the District Music Festival, and it was amazing to see our students. This was the instrumental music piece, and to watch the children from the youngest up through the Moonblowers perform was truly amazing. So hats off to all of our music teachers because they continue to do us proud. And related to that, Dr. Mast, Dr. Heisey, and I had the privilege of being present last Saturday night at Princeton's Performing Arts Center. when our wind blowers were once again named state champions in their division through the New Jersey Association for Jazz Education. It was a very, very competitive grouping that they were in. Both SPF Jazz and the wind blowers had the opportunity to participate. There were only 2 districts that had 2 jazz bands in that competition final, which is an earned spot. We were one of them, and the wind blowers did first place.
Very nice.
And one of our students received one of the scholarships. That's correct. So we're very, very proud of all the music continues to do.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Looking forward to hosting them and giving them their medals.
Wonderful. Mrs. Winkler.
As we were talking about, I'd like to mention that I had a good time on Sunday evening at the Educational Enrichment Foundation's Music Fest, which was really a pleasure. On top of, there were bands that were formed from some of our district parents. There were bands that included our district staff members, and there were bands that included our students. And I was very impressed to see particularly Mr. Jackson's McGinn All-Stars, which included both staff and students. So that was a nice combination. But it was a good variety of music. There was a former student who came and performed. So a lot of good stuff. It was good music, it was good fun, it was good cause, and I look forward to next year's.
Very nice. Anyone else? Okay, so, I have a motion to adjourn. So we'll accept all those in favor?
Aye.
Have a good evening, everyone.